Wet weather, cold weather, warm weather. We are all over the map in the southeast the last few weeks. What does the new year have in store for us? Jeff and I will talk about our weather, climate, and forecast and let you know how it will affect our rivers in this edition of the Water Resources Outlook.
So let's begin looking at the past precipitation across the southeast, and this is for the last 30 days. And we can see the recent rainfall events, one just before Christmas and another one a couple of days before New Year's. These have made a big impact, put in a large area across parts of Alabama and Georgia with several inches above normal for the last 30 days. Most other areas are running near normal, as you can see on the map. So how was rainfall in the southeast in 2013? Here's a summary. Overall, a pretty wet year in total for parts of Alabama and most of Georgia, as well as the Florida Panhandle and the high terrain areas of North Carolina and South Carolina as well. Most other areas were near normal, with no significantly large dry areas in the region. Looking at how individual cities fared, let's look at Atlanta, Georgia, Columbia, South Carolina, Birmingham, Alabama, and Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. You see all four cities saw above average rainfall with steady rises in the summertime period. Most locations were running neck and neck with past wettest years as well. And a big reason for this, why these locations were running so close, was the very wet summer, the wettest summer shown here on the map for Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida, using 119 years of data. But a big reason we didn't see the wettest years was the fall months. We were actually fairly dry in September through November, as you see in the rankings here. Georgia ranked 24th driest period, as well as South Carolina, 22nd driest period for September through November. So how are stream flows faring? With the recent couple of big events, we see the 28-day stream flows have gone above normal to well above normal in the Apalachicola River watershed, as well as the upper PD and upper Santee watersheds. Dry conditions have led to below normal flows in the St. Johns, but all in all, most areas near normal to above normal in the southeast. Wet weather and high stream flows, as you saw before, and now you see the drought is not really a big factor. In fact, we don't see any drought conditions in the southeast at the current time. So as far as the weather pattern, the very cold air has begun to retreat back to the north. The large trough encompassing most of the country will modify the next few days. And we'll see big changes in the jet stream, which will result in milder temperatures, but a return to precipitation across a large area from the Gulf Coast up into the Great Lakes region. This storm system will be with us through the weekend, during the weekend period, and bring another shot of rainfall and potential flooding across the southeast. Looking out beyond this weekend, in the medium to long-range models, they keep the weather patterns fairly active, which is typical for this time of year. The jet stream remains very active the next couple of weeks, meaning temperature swings and precipitation, again typical for this time of year in the southeast.
So Jeff just talked about having a typically active weather pattern coming up in the next couple of weeks, and what we've seen the last week has been anything but typical. And so the first thing we'll look at to kind of give an indicator of maybe why it happened or what happened there, one of the things that we can look at is the Arctic Oscillation. And it's been negative since the end of 2013. And really there's no clear positive correlation between a positive and negative AO in rainfall. But it does have a little bit more correlation with temperatures. And we've been negative, as I mentioned before, and it looks like we'll get positive. So what happens when it's negative? Well, on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that we have the cold atmosphere up near the poles, and the North Pole in this case, and we have all that cold air up there. Well, in a negative Arctic oscillation, it tends to open up a little bit more. It tends to, cold air tends to leak down into the mid-latitudes, and that's kind of what happened during this time. If we move into a positive, what happens is it kind of condenses up there. We don't get as much cold air up there. We continue to stay at least somewhat active, but not with all the cold air. So that's typically what happens. And I took this from the National Weather Service in New York. It kind of gives a description of what a polar vortex is and what a polar vortex is not. But basically, what happens is with all that cold up there, air up there, we got some of that cold air to slide down into this part of the country, bring all that cold air in, and it will slip out. And you can pause this if you'd like and read a little bit more about it. As for our 1 month outlook, this is from the Climate Prediction Center, and this is for January. And right now, this is our precipitation outlook. And at this time, it looks to have equal chances of above normal, near normal, or below normal precipitation. This forecast was issued on December 31st, and at that time, it looked like we were going to have an active forecast, and really we've been active since then, as Jeff mentioned before, looks like we'll continue to be active during that time, but very typical. So we'll have dry days, we'll have wet days, we'll have cold days, we'll have warm days. Again, for this time of year, that's what we kind of expect. And so Jeff has done some work looking at analogs of different years, and since we're in a neutral, and so we don't have La Nina, we don't have El Nino, he looked at all the years where we've had neutral during that time. And over most of the southeast, we're pretty near normal. We have neutral conditions in all those where we have equal chances of either one. There are two places where that's a little bit different. In central Florida, during neutral conditions, we tend to be a little bit drier, and that has been the case so far this winter. And the other place that's a little bit different is eastern Carolinas, eastern and Virginia a little bit. They tend to have a little bit more green, a little bit above normal. So those are the two places that are a little bit different as far as the analogs for that time of year. So what's our forecast for the average stream flow forecast for 2014? Well, over most of the southeast, we're looking for above normal stream flows. Our current stream flows are above normal right now, and based on just even a little bit below normal rainfall, those stream flows will probably stay fairly high for the most part during the winter. And then as we get down into South Georgia and into Florida, we start to get to normal. And in St. John's River Basin, that's the one basin that's below normal. And the eastern part of Florida has stayed below normal over much of the fall and has continued into the winter months. And we look for that to kind of continue. So we'll have to see. It is their dry season, so that kind of has an impact on all those things too. But as for the rest of most of the southeast, it looks to be above normal through January. And then our 3-month outlook, January through March. Right now, the Climate Prediction Center is showing chances for below normal rainfall to be higher in the South Georgia area and so forth. Now, as far as stream flows go, we have equal chances up at the tops of those basins. So we'll still have water moving through those basins, and there's a chance we could get into maybe some agricultural drought in those areas if we stay dry during the winter. But I think our stream flows, except for maybe the smaller ones closer to the coast and that are impacted further north and further west in our area, our stream flows should stay pretty normal or above normal even through March. And so we'll have to watch that, see if that changes, but we'll have to watch it very closely. And as for the April through June time frame, equal chances of above normal, near normal, below normal. This is a critical time as we get into summer because that's when we start to get leaves on the trees, competition for that water through evapotranspiration, and our reservoirs and so forth start to begin that drawdown a little bit. They're not trying to, but just evaporation takes over and the usage of it takes over. And so again, last year we had a lot of rain during that time. We'll see as we get into the summer months if we have the same thing.
So the bottom line, as the cold air retreats out of the southeast, it looks like we'll get more typical winter-type weather, where we'll get cold and we'll get warm. We should see some fronts through here, and we'll kind of go back and forth, see some normal rainfall during the short term. As the long term, below normal rainfall in parts of the southeast, it shouldn't have a huge impact on the rivers. The rivers probably will stay at least normal, probably still a little bit above normal for a while. If we get through the rest of the season, we get into March and we continue to stay below normal, we'll have to watch as that affects our early springtime and how quickly things go down. But right now, for the long term, things just a little bit below normal, but not a huge impact on the rivers. Our next Water Resources Outlook will be on January 29th, 2014. Thank you for listening to this Water Resources Outlook. Please remind your friends and colleagues that they can sign up for the Water Resources Outlook, the Southeast RFC Journal, and other valuable products at our website. Also, you can find us now on Facebook. Look for our next update in about 2 to 3 weeks.